When their usually trustworthy dog started behaving mysteriously, concealing something in his kennel for days, his owners became deeply worried. Their concern turned to tears when they finally discovered his secret. What could have moved them so profoundly? Welcome to Wonderbot Animals. Mia first noticed the changes in her 4-year-old German Shepherd in the early morning when she stepped into an empty hallway. This was unusual because every day around 7 a.m., like clockwork, Sherlock would be waiting to greet her. He would then lead her to the front entryway, where she would put on her shoes and take him for their daily morning walk. But there was no Sherlock, and even as she walked around the house calling his name, she got no response. Confused, Mia began making her way towards the backyard. If he wasn't inside, then it was the only other place he could be. As she stepped outside, she spotted the pup's head peeking out of his outdoor kennel. This was odd enough, but the second warning sign was when, upon calling his name, he didn't respond with his usual energy. In fact, he didn't even move. All he did was follow Mia with his eyes. She noticed that Sherlock seemed very sad, almost lethargic. The dog had a personality of his own, always energetic and ready to play, but he was also incredibly gentle and kind with every person he came in contact with. This behavior was very out of character for him, and this got Mia slightly worried. When he refused to follow her back inside, she had no other choice but to bring his food and water to him. She wanted to offer him a hug and many pets, but every time she got too close, he seemed to be repulsed and he would growl. He seemed to be hiding something inside his crate, and it was clear he wanted to be left alone. She watched from a distance to see if he would eat, hoping that he still had an appetite. But that's when she saw the third warning sign. Instead of simply eating the kibble, he would pick it up by the mouthful and disappear into his kennel. He would then come out a few seconds later and continue to watch Mia warily. Sherlock had never been a picky eater, and now he didn't appear to be eating at all, at least not to the extent he once did. What was he hiding? Was he sick? Injured? A worried Mia went and woke up her husband. Luke didn't understand what was wrong until he saw how Sherlock was behaving himself. Luke was also unable to get close. Every time they tried to coax him out, the German Shepherd would always slip back into the kennel and away from their grasp. The behavior persisted for over a day and into the next morning, which is when Luke and Mia decided it was time to get him checked out. They just weren't sure if they'd be able to get Sherlock out of his kennel. Thankfully, this wasn't an issue because after they got ready, their companion was patiently waiting for them in the living room. He still seemed tired, but more importantly, he was clawing excessively at his ears. Upon closer examination, they noticed he was suffering from fleas, which had caused him to scratch certain parts of his body raw. A small part of his inner ear also appeared to be bleeding. That the car ride to the vet was marked by an unusual silence. Sherlock, usually animated during car trips, now sat subdued. Arriving at the veterinary clinic, they were greeted by the comforting presence of Dr. Thompson, a seasoned veterinarian known for her gentle demeanor. Sherlock's examination was thorough, and as Dr. Thompson inspected his ears, she noticed the telltale signs of a bad infestation, both fleas and ear mites. It seemed that Sherlock's discomfort had manifested into odd behavior. Dr. Thompson explained that the discomfort and pain from the infestation likely frightened him, and being unable to communicate that, he resorted to expressing his distress through withdrawal. Dr. Thompson then inquired about Sherlock's outdoor activities. Luke and Mia explained that he'd been recently spending time in the backyard. The vet nodded knowingly, explaining that it was currently flea season and these infestations were not uncommon, particularly for dogs spending time outdoors. She reassured them that they caught it in time and outlined a treatment plan. She prescribed eardrops and topical treatments to alleviate the discomfort in Sherlock's ears, along with a chewable medication to combat the fleas. Grateful for the clarity, they left the clinic, but still couldn't shake the feeling that something else was going on. Before we continue with this mysterious story, like this video to help it reach 14K likes and subscribe to this channel. Returning home, Luke and Mia began administering the prescribed treatments to Sherlock, which seemed to provide relief. His scratching soon diminished, but the couple now faced a different challenge. In an effort to prevent Sherlock from further exposure to fleas, they had restricted his access to the backyard temporarily. But this caused the once cheerful and energetic dog to become increasingly anxious, pacing around the house and frequently checking the door leading to the yard. Luke and Mia, concerned about Sherlock's heightened restlessness, sought advice from Dr. Thompson. She reassured them that it was not uncommon for dogs to feel a sense of confinement, especially when accustomed to outdoor activities. She recommended closely monitoring Sherlock's behavior and ensuring he received ample mental and physical stimulation indoors. Despite their efforts to engage him with toys and playtime, Sherlock's restlessness escalated. The dog, who had never been destructive, was now clawing at doors and chewing on the corners of walls. He refused to eat, drink or sleep. The mystery left them with a dog they could no longer reach and a heartbreaking sense of powerlessness. Just 5 hours after arriving back home, Luke and Mia were sitting in their bed when they heard an unexpected sound, the unmistakable creaking of a doggy door. Bewildered, they rushed to investigate. Somehow, Sherlock had found a way to break through and was making a beeline for his kennel. Luke and Mia, now in pursuit of Sherlock, stepped into the cool night air. Just halfway across the yard, the dog's paws skidded to a halt. His gaze was fixed on something in the darkness, tracking something that they couldn't see. But what? What could possibly have gotten Sherlock to act up to this extent? And that's when they saw it. Two pairs of gleaming eyes vanishing into the darkness of the kennel. Mia stood frozen, unsure of what to do, while Luke's voice shattered the silence, desperately calling Sherlock's name. Without a moment's hesitation, their dog lunged toward the kennel, his protective instincts overriding any semblance of fear. Luke, fueled by concern, sprinted after him. He reached out, attempting to grasp Sherlock before he entered the kennel's abyss, but it was too late. Sherlock, with a swift and determined leap, vanished into the kennel's depths. Inside, a sudden commotion erupted, a clash of growls, barks, and inhuman screams that echoed through the night. Luke continued his attempts to call Sherlock back, but could only catch glimpses of the frenzied movement within. The unnatural sounds caused him to instinctively fall back out of fear. Then, with a burst of frenetic energy, two raccoons burst out of the kennel, their eyes wide with terror. Sherlock, in hot pursuit, emerged as well, his posture fierce and determined. The trio of animals raced across the yard. Luke and Mia, shaken from their initial shock, snapped out of it. Their instincts kicked in, and without a moment's hesitation, they joined the chase. But their speed was nothing in comparison to them as the pursuit reached its climax. Sherlock successfully herded the raccoons toward the fence. With a burst of agility, the raccoons scrambled over and disappeared into the night beyond. Luke and Mia, breathless from the chase, caught up to Sherlock. Concern etched their faces as they noticed a few fresh injuries on their loyal companion. Despite the bleeding wounds, Sherlock's demeanor remained unyielding as they attempted to soothe and calm him. His gaze remained fixed on the kennel, the very thing that had consumed his attention in the days leading up to this encounter. In an attempt to divert his focus, Luke and Mia coaxed Sherlock away, offering gentle reassurances and attempting to inspect his injuries. However, their efforts proved in vain. Sherlock zoomed directly back to the kennel, his connection to the shelter stronger than ever. It became evident that the events of the night had not diminished his unwavering attachment to it. Concern deepening, Luke and Mia exchanged anxious glances. Sherlock's wounds, sustained during the intense encounter with the raccoons, became a source of growing worry. While they were still perplexed by his fixation, the couple now faced a more immediate concern. The potential risks associated with the injuries, including the possibility of rabies. The realization struck them with a sense of urgency. Despite Sherlock's reluctance, there was no room for compromise when it came to his well-being. The couple knew they had to act swiftly to ensure his safety. Desperation grew as Sherlock disappeared once more into the depths of the kennel. However, just as Luke was about to crawl inside to retrieve Sherlock himself, the unexpected happened. The German Shepherd emerged, not alone, but with something delicate and small clutched gently in his mouth. The couple's eyes widened in astonishment as Sherlock presented what he had been hiding away in his kennel all along, a weak, frail, 1-month-old kitten. Luke and Mia could not help but cry at the heartbreaking sight. The revelation left them stunned as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Sherlock's mysterious fixation, his protective instincts and the strange behavior had been connected to this tiny, vulnerable creature all along. The next step was clear. Both Sherlock and the kitten needed immediate attention. With a shared sense of urgency, Luke and Mia carefully gathered Sherlock and the kitten into the car. Upon arriving at the veterinary clinic, the staff greeted them with a mix of surprise and curiosity. Sherlock, with the kitten still cradled gently in his mouth, stood by Luke and Mia's side. The veterinarian, Dr. Thompson, who had become familiar with Sherlock's recent medical journey, was now witnessing the heartwarming twist in the tale. The examination room became a stage for both Sherlock and the kitten. Sherlock, though initially reluctant to let the kitten out of his sight, began to display a remarkable level of trust in the veterinary team. Dr. Thompson carefully inspected Sherlock's injuries, ensuring that the recent skirmish had not caused any serious harm. The vets gave him a round of rabies booster vaccinations to lessen the chance that he would contract it, though it was unlikely he would. Meanwhile, the fragile kitten underwent a thorough examination to address any potential health concerns, which is when the troubling news came. The kitten, now named Whiskers by Luke and Mia, was extremely weak and in critical condition. They would need to keep the kitten at the clinic for a few days, administering proper milk and nutrition to support its fragile state. The veterinarians had also discovered a severe infestation of fleas and ear mites on the kitten, likely where Sherlock had contracted it from. Given Whiskers' underdeveloped immune system, the fleas had transmitted some other illness, causing a spike in fever and other symptoms. They were unsure how long it had gone untreated, so there was no telling how long it would take for his condition to improve. And that's if the kitten could make it through the night first. The news left Luke and Mia with a mixture of emotions, relief that they discovered the source of Sherlock's concern, and concern for the fragile life they now found themselves responsible for. They had no other choice but to go home, wait, and hope for the best. The veterinarians kept the couple updated on Whiskers' progress in the coming days. Sherlock, separated from the kitten, remained extremely restless and anxious, displaying a level of care and connection that surpassed anyone's understanding. Gradually, the tide began to turn. Whiskers responded well to the treatment, his fever diminished, weight increased, and he developed a healthy appetite. In a heartening turn of events, the day finally arrived when Whiskers was deemed fit to be released back into Luke and Mia's care. The family was reunited at last. What initially seemed like a few quirks in Sherlock's behavior had transformed into the addition of a new, unexpected member, Whiskers. The once anxious and fragile kitten now thrived in the warmth of his loving home, and the unique bond shared between Sherlock and Whiskers added a touch of magic to Luke and Mia's lives. Their home became a haven where the canine and feline members of the family coexisted in harmony. The once mysterious episode had unfolded into a heartwarming tale of compassion, resilience, and the extraordinary connections that can bloom in the most unexpected corners of our lives. And so, with their family happily united, Luke, Mia, Sherlock, and Whiskers embarked on their journey together, ready to embrace the joys and challenges that awaited them in their newfound, happily ever after. Thank you for joining us on this captivating journey. As we bid farewell to Sherlock, Whiskers, and their heartwarming tale, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think is the most unusual or endearing behavior your pet has ever displayed? Has your pet ever kept a secret that you eventually unraveled? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell for more intriguing stories. See you next time.